So today, we're going to dive into the story of three really distinct Native American nations, the Hopi, the Mohave, and the Quinnipiac. We're going to trace their unique histories, see how their worlds collided with outside forces, and uncover an absolutely incredible story of resilience that, believe it or not, continues to this day. And look at this. Right away, we see these two powerful symbols sitting side by side. You've got a photograph of two young Mohave women from way back, over a century ago, and then the modern flag of the Hopi tribe. Together, they really frame what this story is all about: endurance. This is a story of cultures that have bridged the past and the present, carrying their identity forward through generations of just immense change. Okay, so to really understand this, we have to start at the beginning. I mean, way back. Before Europeans ever arrived, these were three deeply rooted and incredibly diverse worlds. It's so important to understand who they were on their own terms, because each had its own unique way of life, its own spirituality, and its own social structure. Let's start with the Hopi. They call themselves Hopitu Shinumu, which means the peaceful people. And this isn't just a name, it's a whole philosophy. To be Hopi is to strive for this state of total reverence and respect for all things. This one idea shaped their entire society, which was organized into these matrilineal clans where your identity, your lineage, it was all traced through your mother. Now, way over in the northeastern woodlands, you had the Quinnipiac, the long water land people, and they were at the center of this huge economic and political network built around something called wampum. But listen, this was so much more than just money. These sacred shell beads were like a common language for diplomacy and trade. They were used to seal treaties, to mark ceremonies. They were so influential that even the early English colonies used them as legal tender. And the Quinnipiac, they were the master artisans right at the heart of it all. And for the Mohave, their whole identity was completely inseparable from the Colorado River. I mean, according to their creation story, the Creator's Son literally gave them the river and taught them how to plant in its fertile floodplains. So for the Mohave, farming wasn't just about survival, it was the sacred duty, a way of living out the instructions they were given at the very beginning of time. But these ancient worlds weren't isolated forever. The arrival of Europeans, Spanish explorers down in the southwest, English colonists up in the northeast, it marked this profound and, frankly, often violent turning point. This was a true collision of cultures that would irrevocably change everything. And this timeline here shows you just how differently this whole contact thing unfolded for each nation. So in 1540, the Spanish first meet the Hopi. A century later, 1638, the Quinnipiacs sign a treaty that establishes what we think of as the first reservation. But this was not just a story of them giving in. No way. In 1680, the Hopi joined the Pueblo Revolt, one of the most successful indigenous uprisings in North American history, and they drove the Spanish out for almost 20 years. Fast forward to 1859, and you have the U.S. military setting up forts right in the middle of Mohave territory. At the very heart of all this conflict was this fundamental, totally irreconcilable difference in how they saw the world. For the Hopi and other indigenous peoples, the idea of land being bounded up and sold just didn't exist. It was ancestral, it was sacred, it was communal. But for the colonists, land was a commodity, something you could divide, own, and define with a piece of paper. This basic misunderstanding, well, it would become the source of just endless conflict. And pretty soon, this conflict over land morphed into something even more sinister: a direct assault on identity itself. The policy of the U.S. government became one of forced assimilation, a systematic, deliberate effort to erase traditional cultures and remake Native peoples in the European-American image. The first step in this was confining people to reservations. So you have these vast ancestral lands, like those of the Quinnipiac and their neighbors, and they were squeezed into these tiny, isolated pockets. The Quinnipiac Reserve, just 1,200 acres. The Hopi Reservation, which was created by an executive order in 1882, was just a fraction of their traditional territory. And this was all by design, to isolate them and open up all the surrounding land for settlement. 5 lashes. Just let that number sit there for a second. What could that possibly mean? What crime would ever earn a punishment like that? That number, 5 lashes, that was the penalty for a child at the Fort Mohave boarding school caught speaking their own Mohave language. And that was just for a first offense. These government-run schools were literally weapons of assimilation. Children were forcibly taken from their parents, they were given Anglo names, their traditional haircuts were shorn away, and they were forbidden from practicing their customs or their religion. The goal was absolutely unambiguous, the complete and total erasure of tribal identity. But you know what? That goal failed. Completely. Against this immense, crushing pressure these nations endured. So the final part of this story isn't about loss. It's about incredible strength. It's about adaptation, and it's about the powerful continuity of culture and identity right into the present day. And you can see it today, right now. Each nation governs itself through modern structures. The Hopi ratified their own constitution way back in 1936, creating a tribal council. The Mohave are part of the Colorado River Indian tribes, which is a geopolitical unit that gives them a much stronger collective voice. And the Algonquian Confederacy of the Quinnipiac Tribal Council is actively working to revitalize their ancestral language. These are powerful acts of modern sovereignty. And this is the proof right here that culture is not some relic of the past stuck in a museum. It is alive. For the Hopi, the Mohave, and the Quinnipiac, traditions are being practiced, they're being evolved, and they're being passed on. Whether it's creating art, observing ancient ceremonies, or teaching a language, these practices are the actual lifeblood of their communities today. It all comes down to this one incredibly powerful phrase: we are still here. This became a motto for the Quinnipiac's relatives in the New England-Algonquian Alliance. It's just a simple, profound declaration of survival. I mean, after centuries of policies designed to literally make them disappear, after being declared extinct on paper, it's a statement of undeniable fact. We are still here.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. The stories of the Hopi, Mohave, and Quinnipiac aren't finished. They are ongoing narratives of adaptation and perseverance. And their journey poses this vital question for all of us. In a world that is constantly changing, how do ancient traditions not only survive, but actually thrive and continue to find their voice?